Is there especially?
The time is now 6 p.m. Our regular City Council meeting for September 22nd, 2020 is now in session. First on the agenda is Mayor Pro Tem Scott, who will lead us with the opening prayer and the pledges of allegiance to the flags of the United States and the state of Texas. Please rise.
Shall we bow our heads? Dear Heavenly Father, let us always remember to praise your name and to seek your will and to do your will here on earth as it is in heaven. We ask for wisdom to guide us in our decisions, to represent the interests of our citizens first and foremost, and to remember our vows to protect the United States Constitution. Let us seek to serve others before self. Please give us guidance moving forward to ensure the liberty and individual freedom of citizens today and in the future. We pray a special prayer for our first responders, our police officers, our firemen and women, and our emergency staff. Please send your heavenly angels to protect them and their families, both on and off the job. Please, dear Lord, we pray for you to keep us safe from threats, both domestic and international. We also pray a special prayer for our citizens of Schertz. Bless us all, especially be with those who have lost their jobs or their businesses. Jesus, you know our needs before we ask, and we pray for faith to take us through these trying times and help us realize that your plan is the best plan for our lives. Please be with our leaders and give us the spirit of conciliation instead of strife. We ask that you give our representatives the desire to seek strength through harmony instead of divisiveness, and grant our leaders as well as our citizens the spirit of unity instead of discord. Please keep us safe from the forces of anarchy and evil that would seek to destroy our nation from within, and let us never forget the sacrifice of those who gave their lives so we can live in this country as free men and women with the God-given right to exercise our religious and civic liberties and freedoms we hold so dear. We ask that you bestow your gift of discernment on this meeting and beyond tonight, and place it in our hearts, reflecting in the lives of your children throughout the world. Please give us your love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. And finally, thank you for this day that you have made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. In Jesus' name and for his sake, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. I do have one special announcement. Council and guests, while seated, it is perfectly fine for you to remove your face mask or while speaking at the podium. But as you approach the dais or depart the chamber, we respectfully ask that you place your face mask back on. We'll continue. We are lucky to have 3 proclamations to be read today. I'll come out to the floor so we can go ahead and address these. All right, the first one is Fire Prevention Week. Chief Long? The City of Schertz Proclamation, Fire Prevention Week, October 4th through October 10th, 2020. Whereas Fire Prevention Week commemorates the Great Chicago Fire of 1871, which killed more than 250 people, left 100,000 homeless, and destroyed over 17,000 buildings. and now serves as a motivating force to bring the people of Schertz together to build a safer community. Whereas the city of Schertz is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living in and visiting our city. Whereas cooking is the leading cause of home fires in the United States, where fire departments responded to more than 173,000 annually between 2013 and 2017. Whereas 2 of every 5 home fires start in the kitchen, with 31% of these fires resulting from unattended cooking. Whereas residents who have planned and practiced a home fire escape plan are more prepared and will therefore be more likely to survive a fire. Whereas working smoke alarms cut the risk of dying in reported home fires in half. Whereas the 2020 Fire Prevention Week theme is Serve Up Fire Safety in the Kitchen. Effectively serves to remind us to stay alert and use caution when cooking to reduce the risk of kitchen fires. Therefore, I, Ralph Gutierrez, Mayor of the City of Schertz, do hereby proclaim October 4th through October 10th, 2020, as Fire Prevention Week throughout this city. And I urge the people of Schertz to begin checking their kitchens for fire hazards and using safe cooking practices during Fire Prevention Week 2020, and to support the many public safety activities and efforts of our Schertz fire rescue. Chief, thank you. I left my proclamations over here. I just want to say thank you, Chief, and the fire truck out there. As you noticed, that's for our safety, and we should be proud of that fire, the work that they do, and everything that for our well-being and our safety. And I hope you don't have to use that truck. Right. But knowing that it's here, it's a great comfort. Chief, I want to go ahead and present this one. We have 3 of them. Wrong one. It's always the last one, right? Here we go. All right. Yeah, we'll come up here. Again, our Schertz Fire Department are highly trained and skilled professionals. Our community values your commitment to our safety and our well-being. Chief, thank you, and each one of the fire rescue team members. Next, we have the Chamber of Commerce Week. Ms. Maggie Titterington, been practicing. The City of Schertz Proclamation, Texas Chamber of Commerce Week. Whereas more than 500 local Chamber of Commerce in Texas distinguish themselves as the voice of businesses in our state. Whereas the Chamber of Commerce for Schertz, Cibolo, and Selma work with businesses, nonprofits, banks, merchants to advance the civic, economic, professional, and cultural life of our city. Whereas the Chamber, founded in 2005, has contributed to the civic and economic life of Schertz for the past 15 years. Whereas the business community represented through the Chamber has been a driving force in fostering enhanced education opportunities, infrastructure improvements, leadership development, the creation of jobs, and a positive vision to the future. Whereas the Chamber encourages the growth of existing services and commercial firms, and encourages new businesses to locate in our community, acting as a liaison with the city, schools, and business community. Whereas the Chamber has been a strong partner with the City of Schertz in endeavors to promote and develop local businesses in our community. Now therefore I, Ralph Gutierrez, by virtue of the authority vested in me as Mayor of Schertz, proclaim the week of October 19th through October 23rd as Chamber of Commerce Week, and acknowledge the numerous benefits and services that the Chamber provides to businesses and the residents of our community. Maggie, thank you. Thank you. come up here, yes.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate this, especially I know we're going to be out for a couple of weeks, but being a part of the Chamber of Commerce for the past 10 years has been probably the most fulfilling thing I've ever done in my entire life as a career. I love being a part of this community. I'm a Schertz girl since '73, and I just thank you all so much for the opportunity of being able to serve y'all. Thank you.
I'd like to add that the Chamber of Commerce is an association of business firms with different types of trades. The Chamber is actually a business network. Maggie and the Chamber staff represent the business community and is a key element to our economic development. Thank you, Maggie, and your staff for everything that you have done for our city. All right, we have one more proclamation. Mr. Bowden? This is the City of Schertz proclamation honoring National Manufacturing Day 2020. Whereas Manufacturing Day is a celebration of modern manufacturing aimed at inspiring the next generation of manufacturers. Whereas Schertz, Texas is a home to more than 35 manufacturing companies. Whereas the manufacturing sector provides jobs such as assembly workers, carpenters, computer programmers, designers, engineers, machine operators, metal fabricators, production workers, welders, and many other specialties. Whereas the Schertz manufacturers produce assembly systems, automotive parts, boiler systems, bulletproof doors, concrete products, custom millwork, engine blocks, eyeglasses, fabricated metal products, lubricating oils, mobile command centers, packaging, protective coating, media, screen media, signs, textiles, and even more than that. Whereas the City of Schertz is dedicated to strengthening and developing manufacturing through a robust economic development program. Whereas Caterpillar Incorporated is the world-leading manufacturer of diesel and natural gas engines, and for more than 95 years has made substantial progress and driving positive change in every continent. Whereas the City of Schertz recognizes the contributions of Caterpillar has made to our community by engaging with us and our economic development allies. Now, therefore, I, Ralph Gutierrez, Mayor for the City of Schertz, do hereby proclaim October 14th as National Manufacturing Day and reaffirm the city's support and commitment to manufacturing. Let's celebrate and remind all individuals of the importance of this celebration, which supports, expands, and improves the opportunities and the quality of life. Mr. Bowden, let's come over here. Let's take it.
Just real quick, I just want to thank the City of Schertz and the community for being wonderful partners of ours. It's great to be a strong competitor right here in Central Texas, and we love it down here. We got plenty of talent around us. It's a great opportunity for us. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Manufacturing, what can I say? I saw I want to say it was a small mini-series, Men Who Build America. Manufacturers have been and continue to be the main element in the U.S. progress. Manufacturing careers are the heart and strength of the U.S. and make a very impactful and driving force in innovations. Manufacturing Day shows the reality of modern manufacturing careers. And I also want to stress that manufacturers here in Schertz have taken the risk and invested in our community. And we thank Caterpillar for being involved in our community and with the students. On behalf of our city, thank you, sir, for everything you have done for our community. Okay, we'll continue with the employee recognition. First is our city manager, Dr. Brown. Oh, okay, Ms. Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mayor. Sarah Gonzalez, City Manager's Office, and I am very excited to be here tonight to introduce to you guys our new Administrative Assistant for the City Manager's Office, Ms. Cindy Simmons. So Cindy is born and raised in St. Joseph, Michigan, which is about 30 miles north of Notre Dame and directly across from the lake from Chicago. She moved to Orange, Texas after getting married and then currently lives in Port Neches, Texas. Cindy came to us. She has municipal experience from the city of Port Arthur, working in the police department there as the chief of police executive assistant. So she was there for 9.5 years before coming to Schertz. She has been married to her husband, Alan, for 27 years. They have one son, Jameson, who is a sophomore at the University of New Mexico in Albuquerque, and he is there on a baseball scholarship. Cindy currently still lives in Port Neches, but she has some friends that live in Canyon Lake, so she is traveling on the weekends to and from to be here for us. So I'm very thankful for that, and hopefully they'll be able to fix their house up and find a house here in the Schertz area. So in her free time, she likes to hike and bike and do anything outdoors, and she travels back to Michigan to see her mom and her brother and his family and friends. So I'd like to welcome Cindy to the team.
Welcome, welcome. Mike's all yours.
Thank you. I just wanted to let you all know that I really appreciate this opportunity, giving me a chance. I know it was a big step to say, hey, you know, you live 4.5 hours away. And I said, I don't just want to move. I'm not just willing to move. I'm desiring to be here. I'm looking forward to be a part of this community and serving the citizens of Schertz for many years to come. And I'm really excited. Really excited to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next, we have EMS.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Dr. Brown. It's my pleasure tonight to introduce you to 4 of our new hires. First up, I'd like to introduce you to Mike McFerrin. He is our part-time supply coordinator. He's going to help us out on the logistics side in EMS. Mike started with the city August 17th, comes to us from Garden Grove, California. He's a retired master police officer. He retired from the city of New Braunfels. He served 5 years as an advanced EMT back in 1974 and was also involved with fire protection specialists for the United States Air Force for 4 years. Mike retired from New Braunfels. He moved closer to the coast, but he missed his grandkids with his wife, so they decided to come back, not to mention get away from a lot of the storms that's down there. He and his wife Laura recently moved back, and he has 4 children, 7 grandchildren, 3 dogs, and a gerbil. So a little bit of a zoo at his place. So I'd like to welcome Mike to the city.
Mike, welcome, welcome. Mike's all yours.
Thank you very much. I just want to thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council, for a job here with the City of Schertz, and I hope to be here many years.
Well, welcome, welcome to our team.
Thank you very much.
Next up, I'd like to introduce you to Eric Stevens. He is a full-time EMT with us right now. He started last Monday, on the 14th. He is a native of Austin, Texas. Currently lives in New Braunfels with his wife Amanda, and they have a 10-month-old son, Theodore. Eric attended San Antonio College and recently finished up his paramedic certification. He's just waiting for that license to come through now. He's been in EMS and served as an EMT for a little over 2 years. So I'd like to welcome Eric to our department.
Eric, welcome. Mike's all yours.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you all very much for the opportunity, and I look forward to serving every citizen of Schertz to the best of my ability with as much professionalism and care as I can possibly muster. Thank
Glad
you.
to have you aboard.
Next up, I have Mr. Charles Lyles. He is also a full-time EMT. He also started on the 14th of September. He grew up locally here in Kirby, Texas, as a military kid. He resides in Cibolo with his wife. He attended American Military University, obtained his bachelor's degree in public health. He has also attended some classes at SAC. He has about 10 years of experience in EMS with his military background. He's married and will celebrate 25-year anniversary in December, so congratulations to that. He has 2 children, a daughter and a son, and also has 1 grandchild. His hobbies include riding his motorcycle and being involved in his local truck club. So welcome, Charles.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. I'm glad to be a part of the City of Schertz, EMS. So I'm looking forward to helping out a lot of people within the community, hopefully making it better.
Well, thank you. Thanks for being part of our team. Glad to have you.
Thank you.
And last but not least, I'd like to introduce you to Madeline Kilholtz. She is also a full-time EMT. She goes by Maddie. She is a graduate of Clemens High School, so a local girl here. She attended Schertz EMS Training Academy this past January, so she's very new to the EMS field. She still lives here in Schertz, proud to serve the city in which she resides. She is now attending Northeast Lakeview. She's trying to finish her associate's degree in science. She's been an EMT for about 4 months. She enjoys the outdoors, fishing, kayaking, and hiking. And just looking forward to growing with the department and eventually would like to pursue a career in flight medicine. So welcome, Maddie.
I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. I'm very grateful to have this opportunity so early on in my career and serving my hometown nonetheless.
We're glad to have you aboard. I would say welcome, but you lived here all your life, so.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to Public Works.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Dr. Brown. I'd like to introduce Dominic Rodriguez. He is a Drainage Worker 1. He started with us on August 30th. He's currently learning the city and what we do in drainage, everyday maintenance. He was born February 16, 1980 in Carlsbad, New Mexico. He went to elementary school in Carlsbad, New Mexico, and graduated from Carlsbad High School. He moved to Midland, Texas in 2002, and then moved to Schertz in 2014. Dominic and his wife are currently living in Cibolo and has 3 kids, the oldest Zachary, who is 24 years old, Jarius, who is 23, and 1 daughter, Destiny, who is 21. Some things that Dominic and his wife like to do: they like to volunteer at their church, work in the yard, go fishing, go to Port Aransas, and barbecuing with friends. I'd like to introduce Dominic Dominguez.
How you doing, Mayor, City Council? I just want to thank you for this opportunity you've given me. Looking forward to spending many great years with the city, moving up with the city. Plan to obtain my bachelor's degree in 2022, so hopefully I can move up and make a career here with the city.
Well, glad to have you aboard, Dominic. Welcome to our team.
Thank you.
We'll continue with city announcements and events, announcements of upcoming events. Mr. Kelm.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. We have one announcement for tonight. Early voting begins Tuesday, October 13th, 2020, and ends Friday, October 30th, 2020, to elect council members in places 3, 4, and 5 For a full listing of all early voting locations and times, please visit schertz.com. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Announcements and recognitions by our city manager, Dr. Brown? Okay. Announcements and recognitions by the mayor, I have none, so we'll continue with the hearing the residents. This time is set aside for any person who wishes to address the city council. Each person is limited to 3 minutes, and we ask before addressing the council. For the record, please state your name and address. First is Nancy Kalinsky.
Good evening, Mayor Gutierrez, council members, and staff. My name is Nancy Klinitsky, and I reside at 1028 Chloe Court in the city of Schertz. The purpose of my presentation today is to support our community's request to have the city of Schertz repair our recently repaved roads within the Wilson Estate Preserves. More so, I'm here to request that the city return our community roadways back to conditions which make transit safe for our citizens. In order to accomplish this, I'm asking to return our street surface to its original condition, which is smooth asphalt. The roadway is one of the most visible and permanent elements of a community, and it is experienced by residents daily as they make choices of how to connect where they live, work, and play. To date, the integrity of the chip seal project completed by the city has degraded. The gravel did not adhere with the tar, causing it to come loose and travel everywhere. This loose gravel has made commuting hazardous for our citizens, and the exposed tar damages everything it comes in contact with. Loose gravel is especially hazardous for our citizens that commute with motorcycles, bicycles, and wheelchairs. My assumed expectation from the City of Schertz's Street Preservation and Maintenance Program was supposed to identify short and long-term capital investments for improvements and maintenance to existing roads or construction of new roads for all modes of transportation. My hopes was this plan also provides a framework to offer choices in how people travel safely, especially for those that require special needs, and effectively while preserving and enhancing the attractiveness of our neighborhoods and environment. As our neighborhoods and Schertz continue to mature, the expectation is that the city will continue to maintain high-quality transportation infrastructures, including streets and sidewalks that reflect a positive experience for all community members. Council members, I can tell you that this roadway project is far from reaching the city's goal of preserving pavement conditions and reconstruction efforts. For the city of Schertz, our hopes is that roadways built within the city be built in conformity with standard specifications for such work, as prescribed by the city engineer and approved by the city council. So I ask, in viewing the pictures of the homeowners association has provided, would you have approved this work nevertheless if it was in your neighborhood? I also propose a question: how do we fix this? Your community, the people, and not just the infrastructure, is a long-term investment, is it not? Again, I thank you for giving me this opportunity to be heard and express my concerns. I have faith in my council members that they choose the value of their people over projects and grant our request to fix our roadways. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I just have a couple of, want to make a comment.
Yes, sir.
I feel it's important to mention that council is not permitted to comment during the hearing of residents since these items were not posted on the agenda. That's why you would not, no, council would not be asking any questions, but thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Next is John Lamantina.
How's it going? I'll be quick because I only have 3 minutes. Mayor, council, City of Schertz residents, first of all, I want to tell you all, I think you guys are doing a great job. I've been living here 15 years, and this is the first time I've ever had to come into the council. Actually, I never even knew what this was for. I used to fly T-38s out at the base here at Randolph, 20 years in the Air I have nothing but love for all of you people. You've made my life great ever since I retired. I've raised a family here. There's always a but when I say something like that, right? But I live at 1021 Hiram Lane. My name is John Lamantia, and I'm just going to piggyback on what she said. The roadway was perfectly fine before it was repaved. After you repaved it, when they were done, I thought that was just a middle step before they came in and flattened it and made it, you know, the way it was before. But the guy working on the road said, no, we're done, this is it. And there are all these rocks all over the road, and they're everywhere. I just think that you all as council members and the mayor should maybe just drive down. We're just right over there at Wilson's Preserve. Drive on our road, and let me ask you, would you want to live in a neighborhood that had a nice, perfectly flat road where you could walk on it with your bare feet, you could play football on the road with kids, and now, after this, you can do nothing in the road. The road is off limits. You fall down that road, it's going to leave a really big mark, okay? So I respect y'all. You guys have a job that I personally would not want to do. But I really think you should drive down and see if that's the kind of neighborhood you want to live in. You paid $500,000 for a house, and all of a sudden they came in and basically ruined the whole front of the house. Those pebbles, they're still, after months, they're still getting picked up by the tires, brought into our garages, then we step on them on our shoes by accident, walk into our nice house with our wood floors and carpet, and we track them in, and now you've got tar all over the house. Happens all the time. I probably speak for everybody in this room. So like I said, I'm just going to piggyback on her. I think that what you guys did, you had good intentions. I've emailed you guys got right back to me when I emailed you. You sent me to the engineer called me up. He said, basically, that's it. This is what we're doing. So I emailed you guys again, and I heard crickets. That's the one part that I'm really upset at, is that when I emailed you a second time and said that, you know, I'm not really getting the response I want, I've heard nothing back from all of you, and I've emailed all of you. This was months ago. So like I said, I just appreciate your time. I appreciate you giving me the chance to speak. You guys are doing a bang-up job, except for this one thing. Okay? Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next is Shane Sepola. Sepola? Okay. It's a double L that threw me off.
Yes, many people say Chipola. Good evening, my name's Shane Sepola. I live on Gwendolyn Way, right behind us, right here. Many of the neighbors here have already talked about, and I'm just going to reiterate. I'm a 31-year career military officer. I currently serve on the staff of Army North, and I'm a proud citizen of Schertz. I'm also the vice president of the Homeowners Association at the Estates of Wilson Preserve, over 70 homes. With me, I've got our treasurer, Steve Rice, along with multiple other homeowners. Thank you for your support. We've got Cedric and Mary Edwards, Nancy Klinsky, John LaMancha, the Lopez, Connie Andrews, many others. If I can just kind of get a show of hands, who's here from Wilson Preserve tonight? Thank you. So like our two previous speakers, I'm here to discuss the conditions of the roads in our city and specifically in our neighborhood. We acknowledge that the city is trying, and we do appreciate it, but I don't feel the focus is on quality. In April or May, we were notified that our streets would be repaved. The streets didn't really need repaving, but we were happy to have a new road. Once the crews put in the new surface, it probably took a week or two before some of us realized that they weren't coming back to cover up the loose gravel. We thought it was simply a gravel base that the crews would come and cover with a solid surface. We were told that the surface was chip seal and that over time the gravel would stick to the tar underneath and the roads would smooth out. In the 4 months since, neither has happened. We were told that chip seal is an economical alternative, that it's cheap. Well, here's a part of the gravel road from my garage, my driveway, the street in front of my house. I can fill buckets with these. Many of the neighbors that are here today have brought various samples with them. Now imagine walking on your own property, stepping on these with no shoes on, sticking to your shoes as you walk into the house on your hardwood floors. We've asked the city road sweepers to come out through the neighborhood multiple times. We appreciate that. But but it doesn't solve the underlying problem, that this surface is not suitable for a residential neighborhood. We have some other folks that are here tonight. Mayor, thanks for showing up, and that have had their neighborhood also paved with this chip seal surface. So just to reiterate, let's kind of discuss why this is not an appropriate surface. We already talked about the loose gravel, sticking to your shoes, damaging your hardwood floors. Children can't cross the street to see their friends on scooters, skateboards, roller skates. Some neighbors have reported punctured bicycle tires by these gravel rocks. Some neighbors have also talked about their pets that get these rocks, this gravel in their pets' paws. And in many areas of the neighborhood, the surface is already eroded away. Bottom line, anyone yield time to me? Bottom line, in our small neighborhood of $400,000 plus homes, this surface severely degrades our property value. We respectfully request that the city return the streets to the condition prior to the resurface. We just want it back the way it was. I had some pictures on the drive here, but I can only see me on the screen.
You can remember what you've labeled, and they should be on there.
So here's one of our neighbors took a picture of the loose gravel in the garage, more loose gravel in the garage, more. Kind of hard to tell from this picture, but that's just a gravel road. That's what our surface is now. More gravel road in our neighborhood. Here's where the surface is already eroding away. In some areas you can see the old surface that was there in April, right here. There's the surface that's eroded away again. And then here's a brief screenshot of the petition signed by by 80 residents in our neighborhood, sent to each one of y'all. That's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Next is Diana Taylor.
Hi, my name is Diana Taylor, 5505 Columbia Drive. I have a lot of concerns tonight that I want to bring to the issues that feel that we've been kind of left over. On 9/12/2018, I sent a letter to the assistant manager at that time, the issue that some of the neighbors was having, our homeowners with pools that was never taken care of. Mr. Bryan, I did that to you. On 12/20/18, I have not received any comments nor email was sent to me. And on 1/24/19, I left a message for them, for Mr. James to get back with me. And on 5/19 last year, a message was left that Miss Jackie would get back with me on 6/7/19. There was 4 gentlemen came out to our neighborhood to check on the issues that we were having, that we're still having. And I feel that we kind of been pushed to the side. And I want to say that I've been here almost 11 years. And I have cried and cried to ask for speed bumps in Fairhaven. It is getting worse, and I know you don't have enough policemen to take care of it. Someone is going to get killed, and it's going to come back on the city because we have cried and cried. I don't want to sound negative, but I don't think TxDOT pays our bill if something should happen to any of the kids. And I want to make sure that we reiterate that. We're supposed to be taking care of the safety of the children. It is night out there. Parents are trying to do the best they can with the kids, trying to get them in the school bus. We need them, and we need them bad. So we've been going through this over and over again. So please help us to take care of those issues. And I also want to say that, I don't know if you all know, but we've had problems also in the past. you all need to make sure you take care of the homestead, new homes. You're going to have issues. You're having issues. They work every day, including Sundays, when the day we're supposed to have a day of rest. And I want to say, because I know you don't want to call out names, but if you all can give money to go take care and upgrade kitchens over at the little Schertz Center, you all can take care of the sidewalks. They are really, really bad. And I have asked for those to be taken care of. If someone get hurt, it's going to be on the city, because we're paying our tax. For us to be treated like this should not happen. And I can understand this other neighborhood, how they feel, because we're supposed to be working together and you're supposed to take care of us. We take care of you in reverse. I pray that you all look at taking care of these issues that we have. And I thank you for your time. And David Scaliona, I want to tell you thank you for what you've been trying to do for us from the time that we've had the problem in Fairhavens. All that we asking for is just a little help. I haven't been to the meetings, but I came tonight because I'm tired. I'm tired and everybody is tired. All we asking for is just a little help. You have my number. Contact me. So let's save the money for the streets. Columbia Drive, it's long drive, messed up. Let's take care of the highways and stuff before you start to take care of a kitchen. I appreciate everything you are trying to do. I know it's hard work and dedication, but we are here to support you, but you got to support us in return. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Next, Ms. Connie Andrews.
Good evening. My name is Connie Andrews, and I live at 1120 Gwendolyn Way. I was one of the first 5 houses built in Wilson in the preserve, so I've seen them all built. I was going to read a bunch of comments to you, but rather I'm a visual person, so if I may. I gathered this afternoon in 10 minutes in front of my house. Yes, I live on a big cul-de-sac. These are the rocks that we're talking about. If you just take them out, put your hand on them, and then imagine a child falling. I'm sorry. All right. That's a very few minutes of my time. Yes, I live on the corner. And yes, it's big. But every day when the rain comes, and I've spoken with John a number of times, who said to me when it first started, "Don't worry, Mrs. Andrews, the tires will grind it in. Don't worry, Mrs. Andrews, if there's extra goop," I call it goop, I don't know, oil, whatever it is, "we'll put sand on it and it'll be okay." Children cannot play. Pets, my dog, and first of all, let me just say, my son is 48 and was raised in the desert, so his feet are like hard as rock, and he goes barefoot everywhere. But my dog ran out into the street, and I was worried about it. So he ran out, and even with his hard little feet, they were cut in 3 places. We had to take some adhesive, or some stuff and take the goop off of his feet, and my dog was cut. We're not asking for much. When I moved in there, I was so proud to be in that neighborhood. And when I retired from the government, I thought, good, I don't have to do anything. But then the street. And it is a shame because it's a safety hazard. This other lady was talking about the safety of her streets. Someone's going to get hurt. Years ago, my granddaughter was just riding on the street, and she put her foot down to stop before the street was done. And she broke her growth plate. Can you imagine the damage that would be done if a child falls? And we've got little ones. I've got my great-grandson who's 7, and he's out there playing ball. We've got little ones 3, 4, and 5. We've got kids. Please, please consider doing something different with this street. It was perfect before y'all started, but now it is an absolute mess. And anytime anybody wants to come by, I have a whole bag full of rocks every single day, and I'd be happy to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Andrews. Mr. Stephen Rice, if you'd like to address the council. It's all right, sir, if you still want to address the council. Okay, thank you. Next, we'll have Ms. Jill Whitaker.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, and guests. My name is Jill Whitaker, and I live at 12214 Hope Seat in Schertz, and I wanted to take this opportunity to introduce myself as a candidate for Schertz City Council Place 3. I have been a part of the Schertz community since 1999 when I came to Randolph Air Force Base as a second lieutenant. My second operational assignment brought me back to Randolph, where I met and married Jeff, my husband. We now have 3 boys, ages 15, 13, and 7. They're growing into young men now, but when they were toddlers, I used to bring them to the old Schertz wooden playscape to burn off their energy. Today, they are actively involved in sports and continue to keep me on my toes. Some folks have asked why they haven't heard of me. The simple answer is that my responsibilities as a wife and mother have kept me occupied for many years. My husband, who is still active duty Air Force, has deployed 4 times, in addition to traveling for training and other work responsibilities. During those absences, I ran the household, paid the bills, and generally ensured that the kids had as normal a childhood as possible. All the while, I was also serving on active duty. Eventually, I separated from the Air Force, but took on a new role as the fundraising chair at the Sunshine Cottage School for Deaf Children, and eventually transitioned into the position of treasurer for the parent-teacher group. During our one assignment away from the San Antonio area, I was hired at the United States Naval Academy, where I worked as a manager. Returning to Texas, I got my real estate license, and now I am a realtor with J.B. Goodwin Realtors. The only significant career experience I haven't yet mentioned is that of military recreation specialist. This was my first job after graduating from college. I worked in youth centers managing both recreation activities as well as working with the school-age child care program, taking care of military dependents so that their active duty parents could focus on the needs of the Air Force. Every job I've ever taken on and every role I've ever embraced, I have given 100%. So you will not find me on multiple boards or volunteering throughout many organizations. I like to give my all to my commitments, and now, as my husband is getting ready to retire, we know that we are able to plant roots. I have the time to step out in a larger way within the community. I feel the past 25 years of serving my country, my family, my children's schools, and my clients has prepared me to now serve the citizens of Schertz. I don't take the position of City Council member lightly, and I am fully prepared to work diligently to ensure Schertz continues to be an amazing place to live. If you're interested in learning more about me, you can find me on Facebook at Jill for Schertz City Council. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you around Schertz.
Thank you, Ms. Whitaker. Mr. Robert Bucher? Sir? I'm sorry. You can...
I'm sorry, but I have no hearing, and that's quite obvious. And I'm not going to belabor an issue because what other people preceding me have said about the streets has been pretty well covering the entire situation. It happens, the problem is still there. It's not going to go away because we now have a rock road instead of a paved road. So it's going to stay for a period of time. My biggest concern is that the city never get involved in that type of a situation again for several reasons. One that hasn't been touched upon, that being new residents are beginning to wonder, is this what happens for all the time in the city? Do we have to expect things like this? And people who are anticipating buying a home and moving into the city, walking and riding on these streets, will have an attitude that maybe this is not the place I really want to live. So those issues really should be addressed. And my concern is that the council take some action to assure it's not going to happen again. And there are some issues that are not that costly that could be taken to improve the situation if it cannot be entirely corrected. And I'd be willing to talk to any of you privately about it.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Dennis, is there any hearing the resident submitted in writing? All right.
Yes, this was submitted by Mr. John Sullivan at 513 Triple Crown, Schertz City Council. It is amazing what the tourist has done to help Crossvine community grow and draw more people to the southern Schertz. I think it is important to link this with the recent tax rate discussion and the fact that the city still has many unfunded departments. Thanks particularly to all of the great work happening at the Crossvine. Our staff and services are stretched thin, and we have spent millions bonding for FM 1518, adding a new water tower, sewer main line, constructing a new park and Crossvine development, adding the new fire station, and more. We even have brand new schools in the area. The city and the schools district still have to fund the expansion services to this area. This is not a tourist redevelopment project near the city center where services already existed. The tax growth in the area is almost exclusively residential with little commercial to help out so far. Many new residents likely have to shop outside the city limits for most needs, so we may not be seeing much in additional sales tax from the growth from the growth either. This means that there is a lot of additional expenses to the city, and we have to remember that the rest of the city does not have to help fund the services to this area with our tax rate as it develops over the life of the tours. I am happy to see the high quality of life master plan community continue to grow through new tax growth, reinvestment into their development. I ask that the City Council remembers to properly fund the services and projects we need to provide a high quality of life throughout the rest of the city as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Dennis. All right, we'll continue with consent agenda items. Consent agenda items are considered self-explanatory, and information packets are provided to council and available for public viewing. These items require no separate discussion unless requested by council. Item number 1, approval of the minutes of our regular meeting on September 8th, 2020. Item number 2, resolution number 20R106, a resolution by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with the Ford Engineering Incorporated for design, bid, and construction phase engineering services for the Aviation Heights Water Facility Relocation Project in advance of the construction project and other matters in connection therewith. Item number 3, resolution number 20R90, a resolution by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, authorizing an extension of the agreement for management services between the City of Schertz and the Schertz-Seguin Local Government Corporation and other matters in connection therewith. Item number 4, resolution number 20R109, a resolution by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement for the remodel of the kitchen and warming area for the Schertz Civic Center in the amount not to exceed $154,295 with IM General Contractors. Item number 5, resolution number 20R110, a resolution by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, authorizing expenditures in the amount not to exceed $1,037,500 for the fiscal year 2020-2021 vehicle replacement program. Item number 6, resolution number 20R111, a resolution by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, authorizing an interlocal agreement with the Comal County District Attorney and other matters in connection therewith. Item number 7, resolution number 20R112, a resolution by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, approving a request for a Schertz Main Street Local Flavor Economic Development Grant for 615 Main Street in the City of Schertz, Texas, and related matters in connection therewith. Item number 8, resolution number 20R105, a resolution by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, authorizing EMS debt revenue adjustments, utility billing debt revenue adjustments, Schertz Magazine debt revenue adjustments for certain inactive outstanding receivables, and other matters in connection therewith. Item number 9, approval of the cancellation of November 3rd and November 24th city council meetings. Item number, I'm sorry, I think that there's a correction on that one. That should be October, am I correct? That's right. We canceled the other ones on the previous one. Okay. Let me read that again. Item number 9, approve of the cancellation of November 3rd and November 24th city council meetings. Item number 10, approval calling for a special meeting for November 16, 2020 to canvass the results of the November 3rd general election. Item number 11, resolution number 20R97, a resolution by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, authorizing the city manager to enter into an interlocal agreement for the allocation of emergency medical services and mutual aid agreements and other matters in connection therewith. Item number 12, approval of appointing Mr. Clark McChesney Jr. to the vacant position to the Tax Incremental Reinvestment Zone Number 2 Board. Council, is there any of these items that need to be removed for separate action? Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Davis? I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem Scott.
Thank you. I had some questions about number 5.
Okay, we'll pull number 5. Any others, Council? Okay, is there a motion to approve items 1 through 4 and 6 through 12?
Second.
I'm sorry, motion made by Councilmember Davis, second by Councilmember Hayward. Council, any comments? If none, let's call for the vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have 7 ayes, no objections, motion passes. Okay. We'll move on to discussion items. Item number 5.
Pull number 5?
Beg your pardon?
Didn't you pull number 5?
Yes.
Pull number 5.
Yes. So we'll move on to discussion items. Item number 5, resolution number 20R110. A resolution by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, authorizing expenditures in the amount not to exceed $1,037,500 for the fiscal year 2020-2021 vehicle replacement program. Okay.
Okay. When I was looking through the notes for tonight, I did not see the price on here, so the wording I had to go through, which I do anyway, you know, the backup documents, but consideration or action approving a resolution by the City Council of Schertz, Texas, authorizing city manager to issue a purchase order for the purchase of various vehicles as part of the 2021 vehicle replacement program. On the agenda that's posted, I didn't see the price till I went into the actual backup, which, you know, doing due diligence one should. I had only 2 questions on that.
Okay.
I think they're important ones. So the variation between the proposed, the $830,000 up to $1,037,500.
Yes.
Is that standard practice, or is that common for something to have such a wide variance, like $200,000?
Well, this goes for vehicles that are on our replacement program for our fleet.
Yes.
So we have PD, for the PD, we have the different Explorers. Then we have our EMS vehicles and just various vehicles that are pretty much past their useful life. So they came up with a plan. So these vehicles are all getting replaced. It's pretty genuine and common for the prices to be different in all of the vehicles.
Okay, I do see the extended cost, and I just did some basic math, which isn't even a fair comparison, but just dividing the number of vehicles. I see 14 on page 66 and 67 by the price. It'd come out to about $60,000, but then some are less and some are more, et cetera. Okay? So if that's common, that's what I was asking, because I'm not in that industry and I don't know.
So the other thing that we didn't include in there are the 2 EMS ambulances, one which is a remount and one which is a new purchase. Okay. And so that in itself equates to about $450,000. Mm-hmm. And so those quotes, because we don't have the final quotes yet, that was included in the contingency number so that we have enough funding available with this resolution to pull the trigger and issue that PO as soon as we get the finalized quotes on those ambulances. And with an emergency services vehicle, the lead time is so long that we need to get that resolution now without having the final quote, so that when the final quotes come in, we can get those POs issued and get those trucks back out on the streets.
Okay, and then I saw the breakdown of the various things. Where is Salisbury, Texas?
Silsbee Ford, Silsbee's not actually a place, it's the name of a vendor, similar to like Gun Ford or Gun Chevrolet. Silsbee's just the name of the vendor. Historically speaking, they've given us very fair rates, and they're part of a group purchasing organization, which means we're able to combine all of our purchasing power with other cities and states, entities, and get a better price.
Where are they?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I'm so sorry.
Brian, do you know?
Silsbee is in Beaumont, Texas.
Beaumont.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So do we do a lot of our purchasing there, or what?
From my experience, I think most of our vehicles from our last fiscal year, majority of them came from Silsbee Ford.
Okay. The reason I'm asking is because we're doing, I know we don't have a Ford dealership in Schertz, you know, but to buy local as much as possible, but also to get the best bang for our buck to serve our citizens. And so sometimes you have to temper those two concerns. So have we historically done a lot of business with them? Sorry if I'm being redundant and already asked.
No, ma'am, that's fine. From my experience, what I've only been with the city for 8 months.
Yeah.
And a majority of our vehicles that were from Silsbee, so I think it's pretty normal.
So how many bids?
Can you address that?
Yes, sir, I would be happy.
Julie?
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. We do order quite a few vehicles from Silsbee. Historically speaking, they've been between $6,000 and $8,000 cheaper than Bluebonnet Ford and Northside Ford. So it's made the reasonable rate, even with getting them delivered longer. So it makes more sense for us to use them.
Okay, good. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
I appreciate that.
Hey, Council, any other questions? Is there a motion to approve resolution number 20R110?
Mayor, I do make that motion to approve it.
Second.
Have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Scott, second by Councilmember Dalla. Council, any other questions? None. Let's call for the vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
I'm sorry, did Mr. Councilmember Davis vote? You did? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear. We have 7 ayes, no objection, motion passes. Okay, we'll move on to item number 13, resolution number 20R107. A resolution by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, authorizing an amended development agreement, project finance plan, and interlocal agreement for the tax incremental reinvestment zone 2 regarding Sedona and Crossvine. Mr. James, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. If you'll permit me, I'll take a moment and kind of give a bit of background for some of our council members who have not been here quite as long, who may not be as familiar with the TERS number 2 in the city of Schertz. Obviously, as the name implies, there was at one point in time a TERS number 1. There is no longer. This is TERS number 2, and it is our only active TERS. Often we refer to it as the Sedona or Crossvine TERS. The development out there that you know of off FM 1518 Lower Seguin Road, that initial phase was initially called Sedona. That's how the developer initially marketed it. When the TERS was created, we kind of referred to it and called it the Sedona TERS. As I'll go through, after a few years with the downturn in the economy, the ownership team of that development group changed. Not much happened for a few years. They came back at it. They came into the city for a significant rezoning on the property, a significant rebranding, and has come to be the Crossvine that we know it today. So just to get us on the same page, this is our one and only active TERS. We call it the TERS number 2, or just the TERS, or the Sedona Crossvine TERS. A little bit of a history as to what a TERS really does. And this is some basic information that really a TERS is a funding mechanism to pay for infrastructure. That's sort of what it does. And I will say this, typically they're either, we refer to them as city-initiated TERSs or developer-driven TERSs. And so I work down in San Antonio, as many of you know. we had about 26 or so TERSs down there. A number of those were developer-driven, a number were city-driven. So for instance, Houston Street, where the Majestic Theater is, if any of you go to plays, things like that, that is a city-driven or had a city-driven TERS on it, and the city used that to spur redevelopment. More recent example is on the lower Broadway section, kind of down from Hildebrand, that sort of area as you approach downtown. There's a TERS there, again, a city initiated as they've tried to redevelop. And then there are a number of ones you may not know about, but they're more like what we have, which are developer-driven TERS. And those typically come about when a developer or large property owner says, I've got this great idea for a project, but frankly, for either one or a number of reasons, it's not viable now, or it's not viable in the form I'd like to build it. And they propose a TERS as a way to sort of fund that. And so that's where it becomes a funding net mechanism. We call it a TIF, a TERS, slightly different things. It's governed by the local government code. And to be clear, TERS is not new money. It's basically taken this current tax we have on property taxes, and it redirects a portion of it, and it does it in a particular way. And it does it by basically, when you create the TERS, you sort of take a snapshot of that geographic area you define, and you say, what are the taxable property values there now? And all those taxes that are paid continue to go to the government entities that they do. But over the life of the TERS, the increase in value, those get driven back into the TERS per the agreement to help fund the things that happen and continue funding it ongoing. And so that's how it works. You have a board that you appoint some of the members for to govern the TERS. You, in fact, appointed a new member tonight, Clark McChesney, to that. Councilman Davis, Councilman Dolly also sit on that. The county has a couple of appointments to that because they participate, and that's Bexar County. San Antonio River Authority has an appointment as well. And then when you start out, elected at the state level appoint people, but typically what you find is they show up for a couple meetings, they never show up, you can't get them reappointed, and so you work within the group you have, and that's what we've done. And so that's kind of the basics of a TERS. Ours came about in 2006. At that time, again, the city was approached by a developer, and reading through the record and the history, developer basically said, look, there's not much going on at that part of Schertz right now, and it probably seems odd to think back just 14 years ago with everything that's out there that there wasn't a lot going on in that part of Schertz. And that was because there was really a lack of infrastructure, in particular, and this you'll find not surprising because we hear about it today, a lack of sewer infrastructure that precluded development. And the developer, the property owner, came and said, we'd like to propose a TERS as a way to fund this infrastructure, and what's in it for the city are a couple things, but primarily we think you get a better quality development than you would get without the TERS. And that's one reason cities often participate, is they want to drive a type of development or they want to set a tone. And as I read the record, that seemed to be a big factor there, as the city said, as this area of southern Schertz, we've learned not to call it South Schertz, southern Schertz developed, we want to set a tone for development. And so the idea is to do a TERS on a large portion of it, about 825 acres, to really create a high-quality development, and that when you do that, it helps for a higher quality development around it. And I think if you look at some of the development we have around there, it's certainly high quality, and I think that's come about. But at the time, it was about 825 acres. It was supposed to run through 2027, so about 20 years. Maximum reimbursement of $45 million. And again, it was driven by the developer. The City of Schertz, Bexar County, San Antonio River Authority all agreed to participate, and we agreed to participate at the levels that are shown up there. Development began, and what you really had, and I'll leave some of this to the developer who's probably going to talk to you next, we had the Sedona development come in. And you know of that development, it's still branded as such, it's a great development, perfectly nice. It's fairly in keeping with a lot of development we were seeing throughout the community, though. It was very nice, just kind of consistent with what we saw. And at that point, again, as I said, we had the economic downturn hit, affected the property owner, and development stalled out. Prior to 2015, a new ownership group took over with some of the old members. They came in, they worked with the city starting about 8 years or so ago, so about 2012, to really rework the zoning. Some who were on Planning and Zoning Commission and Council remember a big, large rezoning that came in that radically altered the nature of the development and what you see now as Crossvine has come in. And so it's done a couple things. The primary thing I think people notice is the use of open space in the drainage areas. Rather than being back of the lots, throw away behind a fence, they've turned them into amenities. You also have Heritage Oaks Park if you've been out there. It's a great park. They dedicated that as well to it with the pond. And so in 2015, after that rezoning, after the economic downturn, the developer were working with the city and said, look, we really need to amend the TERS. We had the downturn, the plan has changed, the concept is still there. We think we can drive this really high quality development you see, but again, it takes a while. So they came forward in 2015 and council approved an amendment. And what that did is it upped the max reimbursement to $58 million. It adjusted some of the obligations because, again, the nature of the development had changed. Again, some of the things that were going to happen when sewer service was going to get there hadn't gotten there yet, and it was a little bit on the city, really. Parkland dedication, they had dedicated that large park. They had now these open spaces that serve that and a lot of private amenities that you see out there for private open space, and our ordinance covered that. Initially, they were obligated to build us a fire station and do it for $1.1 million. That would be great. You may remember we spent over $8 million on our fire station, and we've got that plan going forward. I think we spent $1.4 million on the truck you saw outside. It's just really expensive, and so it really wasn't viable that we were going to get any kind of fire station for that amount. So it came in to adjust and do a cash payment instead. What happened, though, is right as they were kind of in the midst of that, you may remember that we updated or had been in the update process of the Joint Land Use Study for JBSA Randolph. And that's a document that some of you remember we've probably done for years, and you've done 2 or 3 of those that have come through. The big change in this JLUS is when they looked at that area south of Bays, where previously in what's called the accident potential zone, which covers a large part of this area, half-acre lots were perfectly fine. And I think, and this is my opinion, and some may disagree, and we've had these debates and arguments, but when people talked about half-acre lots, they thought, well, these will be ranchettes that'll pop up here and there, and that's certainly okay, and you'll have bigger property around them. And what I think they saw happen is that Laura Heights came in a very nice development, half-acre lots, and built sort of a suburban-style development on half-acre lots. And as the JLUS came around, everybody said, that's, I believe, and as I heard, that's not what we were thinking, and that seems problematic with the JLUS. And there were a lot of concerns at the time over a number of things, and again, this is a bit of background. The accident potential, or the clear zone at the end on the southern runway was not the typical size it should have been. It needed to enlarge. There were properties that needed to be brought in. And you may remember, we had a number of public meetings to go over this and try to deal with it, and there was a lot of concern of these changing times that this area that's in the APZ2, in the TERS controlled by the developer, would be very problematic. Ironically, at that time, the developer had been into staff to say, hey, we're ready to get going on these large lot of state kind of things, really nice houses. We said, we really need you to pause this thing. We need to get through the JLUS. This is problematic. And frankly, that is what sort of paused this after council approval to keep it from going to the other entities. As we said, we need to work this conflict out, because you're not going to get a lot of support from our council if we're doing something not consistent with Randolph, and I don't think you're going to have much chance with Bexar County, who is actively involved in as well, and they agreed to do that. And so it paused. And again, that's a little bit of the history. One of the things that the developer ended up doing is, and they can show you on their graphic, this large estate area in the APZ2 on the eastern southern runway, they had the option on, and were planning to come in and develop. The benefit to them is the more development at higher value, the more money that generates to be returned back to the TERS that goes back to them and is reimbursed to them. And frankly, we had a lot of serious conversations that the point of this development in the TERS was to benefit the community and surrounding area. This is not headed that direction. We need you to do something. And frankly, as we were talking about amendments and modifying the amendment going forward, and I think, frankly, as I said, because of pressure put on the developer from a number of different government entities and folks to not move forward, they chose to let that option lapse, and that allowed that property owner to then begin negotiation on a conservation easement to sort of solve that problem and have it go away. But this has been a factor that staff has been aware of because it had a significant impact on the TERS generating the revenue that they thought it would going forward, because although it's still in the TERS, it's not developing, it's not going to develop, and there's no reimbursement. And all of that to say, when we say, well, why are we doing this, it's a couple of things. And so let me cover what they're basically wanting to do. They want to up the TERS to 948 acres. It's to land the developer is subsequently controlled. It's right adjacent in the vicinity. It helps kind of fill in some of the gaps. Some of those are some pieces that are likely to be not single-family residential. It extends the TERS through 2041. It increases the reimbursement to $66 million. And let me pause that for a moment, because essentially what happened is with some of the pauses in development and the elimination of that from developable, the clock continued to tick. The prices of construction continued to go up, as you know, and they lost that acreage. And so a lot of this is really to try to say, what was the kind of thought at the initial beginning? How do we get back on track? The big thing I will say, though, that has been the biggest factor, and it's not just the TERS here, it's other TERSs in the region. As you know, it's the significant increase in homestead exemptions. And we, as we know, have had quite a few of those. And on the one hand, that's great. It means because we are providing the kind of community that folks who have served in the military and came out of that with some issues say, this is the place for me to live and these are the kind of services that I want to be. That's a very positive thing. And I've never heard anybody on council say that that exemption is a bad thing. What we simply said is, man, we really need to get everybody in the state to help foot the bill for this, not just for us, but for Colleen, other communities that have it worse. But what that did to the TERS is, when they create the TERS, they create a project and a finance plan. You can throw that finance plan out the window because those revenues don't materialize. And so a lot of this is to overcome those issues. Now, one of the things, as I mentioned initially, they were supposed to build a fire station, then they were supposed to give us $1.185 million. We then built our fire station. They had already dedicated a tract of land for that fire station off Ware Seguin, and we said, yeah, actually, we don't need it for a fire station. One of the things this amendment does is we can do whatever we want with that property. It makes it very clear. So if we need a public works yard down there, we can use that for it. If we want to sell it, we can do that with it. They've also given us an additional acre by the fire station. Fire station site is great, but we've talked about what are some of the things we may need to serve down in southern Schertz. Again, could be a satellite office for the city, could be training facilities, could be things like that. There's value to us to having a piece of property directly adjacent, and again, part of the issue is trying to get that as we continue to move and as commercial development comes closer. But the other big issues, as I said, in terms of what's in it for the city, and this is really a couple of things. So one is, keep in mind that we have participation from Bexar County and Sarah. As part of this amendment, the developer is actually asking Bexar County to go up on their participation level to 80%. In the staff report, I hit a 9 instead of a 0. It's 80% going up from where they are today. So more participation from Bexar County. But these amendments also extend the participation from the other entities. And what that really does is, typically cities view that as, this is money that's contributed by Bexar County and Sarah that likely would not be contributed to our community otherwise. It's their increment going into it. So you think of it a bit like a grant. We put in some money for something, we get this money or this investment that comes with it back, and that's really the value driven for us. I mentioned the total cap. The actual agreement has caps for each participating entity as well. So all that $66 million is in us. It caps it for the other participating entities as well. The other thing that this does is, again, I think because nobody, certainly the city, didn't expect the exemptions and things like that, is it really allows the developer to stay course. And I think one of the issues from staff's perspective is, as was mentioned, we have seen a lot of residential development in southern Schertz, and it's high quality, and that's great. But what are we waiting on as a city? We're waiting on that commercial development to come in that does a couple things. One is commercial development driven by the residential homes, not just across the larger area, that's not in the TERS, that now comes in that pays, but that's driven by those residents. And then the other is that we maintain that high quality of development. Again, we need a balance of housing values and prices in our community. We've talked about that. We've talked about that new 290,000 is just, we need to have affordability. The flip side, you do want that higher to help have that buying power offset some of those things. And that's what this does. It lets the developer stay the course with their project so that we continue to get the kind of project that we've been seeing versus change course. That's generally the gist of the change. There are a number of other cleanups. I think we had an attachment that it does, that things we just needed to tidy up and clean up and deal with the reference going forward. But I will say that, and again, we appreciate you appointing another TORS board member. We struggled to get a quorum. We have been trying to get this on y'all's agenda for about a year and a half, I think. Having that extra member helps. We took it to the TORS board last month. The TORS board unanimously recommended approval of it going forward. This is what the developer needs to then go to Bexar County, get them to approve it, and then go to Sarah as well. And again, Sarah has a staff person who's a rep on the TORS board and has been communicating about that process as well. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions. As long as my presentation was, I left off a lot of the kind of development going on thing that the developer can cover.
Thank you. Council, floor is open for discussion. Mayor Pro Tem Scott.
Yes. So that was a lot of information, and it was a good refresher, and thank you so much. A couple of kind of remedial questions up front. Is the flight zone, all the new developments that we saw in here and what you're referring to coming online, are those in the flight danger zone, and will it impact?
No, ma'am. So the land being added to it is outside of the APZ. And again, part of the reason they're adding that is to compensate for this part that was in the APZ2 that they let go out of the option. And so again, it needs to be compatible development. I will say that this developer and the builders have been very supportive about where we have sound attenuation required, making sure the builders are on board with that. So again, nowadays, unlike in the past, and maybe we can't hear, and I'm with you on that, if the volumes are above a certain decibel, people have to do a little bit of extra building to those homes to kind of make sure it's a little bit quieter inside.
Good. And the other remedial question, I think you answered it. It was like the disabled vets thing, how they get the tax exemption, and that affects the revenues coming in, correct?
Yes, ma'am, and that's really the big thing. And the developer, I'll let him kind of cover those numbers, but much as the city has experienced that, they have not experienced that revenue as well. So the money they were sort of going, all right, all our numbers map out, and we know it may go up or down, we're not hitting it, not hitting it, not hitting it, and that has really been a lot of the reason. Now, I will say, and you may have noticed the last bit on the slide, I think from a staff perspective, while there may be cleanup coming forward a little bit, staff is a bit of the position. At this point, we're recommending this amendment. We're not planning to come back and extend it. We're not planning to come back and up the amount. We've kind of been through this a few times, and at this point, we all need to live with it and plan for it, but we think it sets this course going forward to get us where we want to be. But we did kind of want to say, this is not a never-ending kind of thing, because what we're waiting on is that 2041 date when this all is developed, and they've got a lot more to develop at a high quality. At that point, all that revenue comes to the city, and we've had that benefit of the investment from the county and Sarah.
Okay, great. How much of the $66 million will we get from San Antonio and Sarah?
So I can pull that up and look and give you those numbers if you'll permit me.
Okay.
The caps are, City of Schertz is 47 million, roughly 47,190,000. Sarah is 990,000, sorry, and Bexar County is 17,820,000. So Bexar County is really what kicks it in at almost $18 million of investment in Schertz. And again, that's probably the biggest driver for staff is not that we're not likely to get that investment. Certainly, Bexar County helps us, does a lot of things, not knocking it, but this is driving into the community that they don't otherwise. Now, they participate in other TORSs down in San Antonio area, and that money gets driven into there. We're looking forward to coming.
Okay, fantastic, thanks. And then two more. In the Sedona area, and then the other developments, the plots that were here with the different home builders and such. I I noticed, and I'm doing it from memory, and it was a long attachments, but in some of the neighborhoods, there were no big box stores. There were small commercial developments, and you have the parks, and it's all charming, and it's not going to be, real commercialized. But in your presentation, you mentioned, commercial, when that comes online, that's where the new taxes come from. Where will the commercial be located?
Let me show you real quick, and I'm going to use the developer's presentation, then he can get up and give you the big kind of grand sell on it. But these are the areas, as you can see, that they're adding in orange, and those are outside the APZ. And that includes this property up at Lower Seguin in FM 1518. Let me see if I can get you a better graphic here, and I'll zoom in on it, Councilwoman. So the largest concentration of commercial is in the town center, and that's at, as you can see from the cursor, Lower Seguin Road here in FM 1518. That's where the bulk of it is, and so by design, the plan was really to concentrate that. Now they've got a small commercial piece on the south side of Lower Seguin Road, and then they've got some commercial down further in the southern section before you hit kind of where Seguin mid-block. But what the developer has done, as I said, is concentrated that commercial development primarily to be a big kind of town center type of plan development that you see. And again, the concept initially was for this to be not necessarily the big box stuff, but the smaller stores. Again, you can see the property outside the TERS, but that again benefits from the residential units that come in.
Got it. And then finally, last but hopefully least,
that's okay.
You're recommending this is going to be the final version. We're not going to, no more iterations.
Well, let me say this. So, and I'm going to caveat that because I want to make sure I don't make a mistake. So, we still have quite a ways to go with the TERS another 20 years. Likely, I would bet we come back maybe every 7 years or so for some tweaks. Hey, we thought we were doing this, we need to tweak, we need to adjust. I think that's very likely, and I want to be clear for the record of that. But what I don't expect to happen is for staff to come back and say, need a 10-year extension, need to up the dollar figure, need to... For us, this is a way to say, fair enough, you came through, we approved it, we asked you to pause, you did, you came back through and got it, let's stay the course. But at this point, we understand those boom and bust cycles, we understand the exemptions, and you need to kind of live with that moving forward. And so yes, I do not see, and I never say never, I do not expect staff to come back in and make a significant recommendation like this. It's not uncommon you do this at one point, but it's not a never-ending cycle, because we need to get to that 2041 date where we start collecting all that revenue that the project has developed. And we feel like the 20 years gives the project time to fully build out, including the commercial to fully build out. And so we continue to get the high quality over the life of it, but at that point it's done and we drive all that revenue back in. Yes, ma'am. You're welcome.
Okay, Council, any other questions? Yes, Councilmember Scagliola.
Yeah, I do promote smart, sustainable growth, and I was on the council almost 15 years ago when this concept came to us, and I was really enthusiastic about the opportunities it laid out. Make a long story short, we adopted Crossvine, the Crossvine PDD, pretty much as a development standard for the city. It was that good. Yep. It fit all the squares, dotted all the I's, crossed all the T's of what we were trying to do in the city at the time. And I do believe that the developer of the Crossvine has lived up to their promises and their expectations, and they've gone above and beyond in some situations, and it's been a very, very good relationship between us and a developer. I also believe there's sufficient oversight with the board to keep the Crossvine development moving in the right direction. So I recognize there's challenges. You know, I recognize there were challenges in the past. I recognize there are going to be challenges in the future that are associated with this development. But I'm confident, I really am, that this amendment, if we do approve it, will be in the best interest of both our community and the Crossvine development. So, Mayor, with your indulgence, I'd like to make a motion that we approve resolution number 20R107.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion by Councilmember Scagliola, second by Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Scott. Councilmember Adala, you had questions?
No, just a comment. I'll kind of tag on what Councilman Scagliola was saying. I've been involved with this development since the beginning when Larry Aiken came in as Sedona. It's what got me started getting involved, and here I am all these years later. Being a neighbor to the Crossvine, I had the opportunity to watch it change into something really special and participate in it while serving on planning and zoning. And yes, I totally agree that Chris Price has done a fabulous job with this development. It has raised the bar for residential development, not only in Schertz, but all through the region. You can drive around in some of the newer subdivisions in other parts of Bexar County and surrounding metropolitan areas and see some of those design elements that have changed the way residential development is done all around the area. And it's really been an honor and a privilege to be a part of it, and I think it's something really special. And and I want to contrast that though too with conversation I had with John Kessel years ago, is that in terms of growing a city, that this is probably the most expensive way to grow a city in terms of the infrastructure and the commitments. But sometimes you have to make that investment, and what this development did is it kicked off all of the development in the southern part of Schertz. People have been looking at projects prior to this for 20, 25 years, and there was always the hindrance of the accessibility, the railroad tracks, FM 78, Cibolo Creek being such a formidable barrier, the lack of sewer service, and everything else that came along with that. And we're here. I think we definitely need to see this through and make sure that Chris has the opportunity to complete the vision of what he's brought to us. And so let's get this done.
And if I may real quick, Mayor,
Yes.
you're probably going, quit talking, Brian, and I appreciate that. One thing I will say, and this is fairly unique, is you may recall with the state law change last session, we can no longer regulate building materials allowed by the building code. So where before we had architectural standards that said no metal buildings, we can't do that. Crossvine is really the one residential development where with the PDD we had imposed architectural and material standards. We can no longer enforce all of those because of the material. Per this agreement, it requires the developer, as part of the TERS, and this we can do, to enforce those regulations. So we do maintain that quality, and I should have mentioned that.
Council, any other comments, questions? I just want to echo my, Michael Dalla's, what he mentioned is that this development has sparked an interest, and you saw it as soon as the first house went in there, and it is a beautiful, beautiful subdivision that's been created there. Can't wait to see it all complete too. So, with that, we had a motion by Councilmember Scagliola, second by Mayor Pro Tem Scott, to approve Resolution 20R107. Any other comments? If not, let's call for the vote.
Vote aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
We have 7 ayes, no objection, motion passes.
Mayor and Council.
Thank you. We'll move on to item number 14, resolution number 20R104. A resolution by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, supporting the passage of legislation during the 87th regular session of the Texas Legislature 2021 to allow for the expenditures of municipal hotel occupancy tax revenue by the city for construction of improvements of municipal parks. Dr. Brown, floor is yours.
Yeah, so I just simply bring this to you for consideration. This is an effort that's being made to, among cities, to send resolutions to TML so that they can use it as part of their legislative program. Now, at the TML conference next month, they will vote on, what they want to support for next year's legislative session. And so we're asking that this be considered as, as a potential bill, because right now you can't spend hot funds on parks. To me, it just makes sense that it would be a good opportunity for us. We do attract visitors. We do have a lot of athletic tournaments. We do bring a sizable number of people into our city, and this would certainly help us as we go forward and develop our parks. So it's simply an effort for council to approve a resolution for TML to consider in their legislative program, and that's the purpose.
All right. Okay, council, floor is open for discussion. No comments?
To clarify, this is just a statement of support or not support for expanding hot revenue usages for park improvements.
It's a statement of support for that. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve Resolution 20R104.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion by Councilmember Dahlia, second by Councilmember Scagliola. Any other comments? Yes.
Well, my vote's gonna sound weird because I hate hot funds because they just sit there and rot.
And that's part of the problem.
So I'll just explain my vote just because people voted for me. I think I'm gonna vote no on it just because the whole purpose of hot funds, the whole system's kind of dumb, but the whole purpose is bodies and beds, and I think they already have carve-outs for tournaments, sporting events, and so I'd rather them get rid of hot funds altogether, but, so yeah, anyways, that's all I gotta say.
Okay, any other comments? If not, let's call for the vote.
Aye.
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 Nay.
Okay, we have 6 ayes, 1 objection, motion passes. Okay, we'll move on to public hearings. Item number 15, ordinance number 20T32, an ordinance approving the appraisal roll, setting the tax rate, levying and assessing general and specific ad valorem taxes for the use and support of the municipal government of the city of Schertz, Texas, apportioning the levies and specific purposes, providing severability clause, and providing an effective date. Mr. James Walters, you have the floor.
Hey, good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is James Walters. I'm the Finance Director here for the City of Schertz. Tonight we have the second and perhaps final reading on the proposed tax rate. Last council meeting we had the rate at 0.5121, effectively a 0.8% increase on the tax rate. Tonight we're looking for a second and final vote. And that's all I have for you tonight.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Walters. Council floors, well, before we open it up, this is a public hearing. Okay, if there's anyone in attendance who would like to address the council in reference to this subject. Okay, second notice for any comments regarding this subject. Final notice for this public hearing. Okay, public hearing is now closed. Okay, council, floor is open for discussion. Yes, Councilmember Hayward.
We had a lot of discussion at our last council.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Since we had all the discussion last council meeting about the tax rate, can I just make the motion? I move that we. I would like to make a comment before we vote. Go for it.
Okay, well, I'll let her finish and then we'll come back, okay?
If she wants to make the comment, then I'll hold the motion.
Okay. All right, Mayor Pro Tem Scott.
Yes, we had quite a lengthy discussion last city council meeting. I think there were like 5 votes, and it was like giving birth. I mean, it took a lot of heart and soul and brain power, etc. I wanted to go on the record. I saw that this week that San Antonio actually lowered their tax rate. I wanted to go on the record. I didn't think I made myself clear last week whenever I did second Councilwoman Hayward's motion on the .5121. What moved me over there was Councilmember Brown's recalling the tax workshop when our ultimate goal is to reduce debt. that really swayed me enormously, and that brought me over from not wanting to raise it to raising it moderately, as long as we can move in the direction of reducing debt and not just floating bonds and kind of pay as you go. And I don't think I made myself clear last week, and I wanted to. My heart kind of fell when I saw San Antonio lowered their tax rate, but I'm going to hold my guns, and I'm going to still vote on what we decided last week, for the record. But thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Yes, Councilmember Scagliola.
Yeah, as long as we're having some comment, here's my take on this. I'm rather confident that this tax rate increase is unneeded, and reserve the right to say I told you so come this time next year. That's about all I have. I'm not going to belabor the vote.
Okay. Right. Councilmember Hayward, I'll let you come back to you. The motion.
I move that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of the tax rate of 0.5121, which is effectively an 8% increase in tax rate.
0.8.
Do we?
It's 0.8.
Oh, 0.8, I'm sorry.
Do we? Okay, we have a second by Councilmember Brown. Okay, before we take the vote, I just want to make it clear, because I had some residents call me on the tax rate. Our last year's tax rate was 0.5146. This year's tax rate is going to be voted for a 0.5121. That is a reduction in the tax rate. However, it is an increase in the revenue that is coming in. The increase is going from $700,000, oh, and it's increasing to $21,400,000. That's where the 0.8% increase is. So I just want to make it clear, because I think there was some misunderstanding. You're lowering it but increasing it. We're lowering the rate, increasing the revenue in this situation. All right. So we have a motion by Councilmember Hayward, second by Councilmember Brown. Any other comments?
Just one.
Yes.
Yes, we're lowering the rate. We are not raising anything. The only people that will have an increase in their tax bill will be the ones that have an increase in their property values, all right, and that don't have other exemptions.
Correct.
Not across the board.
Right.
Whoa, excuse me. Isn't that the definition of the no new taxes rate? The 0.5079 rate would accomplish that. No. That's my understanding of a no new taxes rate. This increases taxes on residents.
For those people that have an increase in the property values.
Yeah, property values, yeah.
And most everybody has had property value increases. But once again, moot point.
Councilmember Hayward, do you have comments?
Possibly if you protested your property tax, you may not have an increase.
And this also accounts for new property. Anyway. Councilmember Larson.
I was keeping my mouth shut, but there's a bunch of political ninja work going on here. This is unequivocally a tax increase. Anyone who tells you it's not a tax increase is being dishonest. There's nothing in our budget that plans or moves us closer to reducing debt in the sense of reducing our INS rate. That was simply a plan that we discussed at our budget retreat for the future. So adopting a tax rate which is a 0.8% increase in your taxes, does not get us any closer, and there's no current plan other than to plan a plan for reducing our reliance on debt long term. And if there is one thing that Councilman Brown said that is true, if you are a resident who receives your appraisal notice and it says that your property values are staying the same or decreasing, then it is absolutely true that this would be a tax decrease for you. You are also almost as rare as a unicorn, so congratulations. And protesting your taxes is something you should do even if you get a reduced appraisal. Protest, because sometimes you can get even more. But in this region, the likelihood of you getting same or decreased appraisals year after year is almost zero. And even if you protest what you're probably getting, which is closer to a 10 or 15% increase, they will often meet you somewhere in the middle. So Councilmember Hayward gave exceptional advice. Protest, 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 even if they lower the appraisal. Although you got to be careful there sometimes, because I don't know if that can bite you in the butt. But you should always protest. And this is a tax increase. Nothing in this budget plans for future adjustments from how we use debt. That's simply a plan for a plan that we agreed to outside of the tax rate discussion.
Mayor?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Scott.
Okay, so last week I saw on here, I don't know what page it was on, we're going to look at reducing the tax rate next year. If we could like change that to we're going to, because I understand. I mean, I understand exactly what's going on. But this does, in theory, give us more money to put us in a better position to be able to move forward, to not have as much debt if we take care of it as we go. No, there's no guarantee. Last week, it was running so long, it was after a long day, and we beat the dead horse at some point. I wanted to go back and say, let's just change the wording. In this it's on here somewhere. I remember it. We're going to look at doing that, and it is a plan for a plan. And I want to take it on good faith. I certainly trust our city management and city council, and I know it's, kind of different when you change, seats and people aren't always here and things change, but I trust our city managers to move us in that direction based on good faith. And so at some point we have to do what's right, but that's where my heart is, that we're using this to avert further debt. There's smart debt and then there's dumb debt. And investment is always, it's generally, if you're wise, it is a good debt. But I'm trying to not, that's where my heart is at on all of this. So I understand what you're saying, and I really appreciate you a lot. And I appreciate everyone on here, but, and Scagliola too. Okay?
Okay. A lot of excellent points made by council. We have the motion and a second by, motion by Councilmember Hayward, second by Councilmember Brown. Any other comments? None. Let's go ahead and call for the vote.
Aye.
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 Nay.
Aye.
Nay.
We have 5 ayes, 2 objection, motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Walters. All right, we'll move on to item number 16, ordinance number 20S29, an ordinance by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, amending Part 3, Schertz Code of Ordinance, the Unified Development Code, UDC, Article 5, Section 21.5.8, permitted use table, specifically for the Main Street mixed-use zoning district, appealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict with this ordinance and providing a severability clause and providing an effective date. This is our first reading. Okay, Mr. James, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. So you will notice this is a much better PowerPoint. That's because it was prepared by the Planning Department. I simply said, I think we're in for a long night tonight. I think I can cover these so you guys can take the night off. So they set me up well. If it doesn't go well, it's my fault. This is an amendment to the Unified Development Code, essentially for the use tables. You may remember that each of our zoning district has a list of allowed uses, a list of uses by SUP, and a list of uses by right. We created a number of years ago the Main Street Mixed Use District to apply to Main Street. It has some different developments to fit with that areas. It allows both residential uses and low-intensity commercial uses. We're playing it safe. It's proven successful. One of the challenges, though, is that it does not allow restaurants and taverns by right. With a restaurant, it requires an SUP. As you know, to get a specific use permit in an SUP, you have to do a full-blown site plan. That means making an investment, pretty big one, on the chances that council approves it. So again, as the example I used at P&Z, you may remember whenever Quick Trip shows up for their SUP, they've got about a half dozen people dressed in suits, they've got boards, they've got a really long PowerPoint presentation. It's because they've made that big investment in that plan and they want to see it through. This would allow restaurant by right, which has that benefit. And the other thing it does, because part of the plan was we'd like to see, bars, restaurant, things like that, it allows a tavern by right. And a tavern is essentially our bar use in the district. Staff educated me a little bit today what they believe the technical difference is between a bar, a tavern, and a pub are. I'll leave it to each of us to explore that on its own. But that is the proposal. So it simply allows those two uses by right. Everything else stays the same. The Main Street Committee recommended approval of it. It did get approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission. It was a mixed vote. Again, and you can see in the staff report the reasons. I don't know that fundamentally everyone who even voted against it was opposed to it. So staff recommends approval as conditioned in the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. James. This item is on the agenda as an open public hearing. Is there anyone in attendance who would like to address the City Council? Going once, going twice. Public hearing is closed. Council, floor is open for discussion. Yes, Councilmember Scagliola.
Seeing as how you put the effort into putting this together, thank you so very much for that.
Clear. Planning staff did. I did them a disservice.
Let me just ask you one question. I love the idea of streamlining the process.
Yep.
You know my take on bureaucracy.
We are trying to do that.
So I do appreciate this. And I see the upside to it. Potential downsides, they elude me at the moment. Are there any that we should be aware of?
So there certainly are. I will say this. Whenever you amend your code of ordinances, and let me back up. This is how I tend to think of our regulations. And whenever we write a regulation to deal with an issue or a problem, we can write it very broadly because we don't want anybody virtually to slip through the cracks. We want to catch 99% of those problem cases. We write it real restrictive. Only 1% is going to get through. The problem with that is we have all these cases that we didn't mean to hang up, and we hang them up with it. And so really the balance is you write an ordinance that said, look, we'll catch 85% of this stuff. We'll have some slip through. I'll still hang up some people I didn't mean to, but it's far fewer. That's kind of the logic of it. So again, the issue I would say, and it's a bit of a different problem, and I'll look to the Main Street Committee members, is if in fact this vision continues to ramp up and we get a lot of bars and restaurants say, wait a minute, we kind of have enough, then we probably need to revisit it, but we come back and we do some things. We use our toolbox of incentives, other things like that to say, I've got enough of those. We need upscale retail, we need things like that going forward. And so there is that drawback, but again, what I would say is if we don't ever kind of take some of that risk, we get hung up where we are. And so staff will monitor, as we've done with some of the things like pit pads and things like that. If it proves problematic, we'll be back up and saying, you probably told us so through your question, and we need to tweak it.
No, I think you've put a lot of thought into it. Thank you very much. That's all I have, sir.
Okay, Councilmember Dalla.
Yeah, I just agree with that. You know, the tavern, on initial thinking, you think, yeah, I'm not so sure about that. But the fact of the matter is that, you call a tavern, a bar, or whatever, it's going to be a small neighborhood type facility. We're not going to get a midnight rodeo or a Cowboys dance hall down there. Anyway.
Or a Randolph Country Roundup for those who remember.
That's right, yeah. And so I'm willing to take a bit of a shot at getting something that may not quite fit in. And if we do, we have, as you said, other tools in the toolbox to help it, prevent it from being a nuisance for the neighbors that are down there.
Okay, any other comments? Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 20-29?
So moved.
Councilmember Dalla made motion.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Hayward. Okay, any other comments? If none, let's call for the vote.
Aye.
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 We have 7 ayes, no objection, motion passes. Thank you, Mr. James.
You're welcome.
We'll move on to item number 17, ordinance number 20S30. An ordinance by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, amending the official zoning map by rezoning approximately 2.94 acres of land from single-family residential agriculture district and general business to neighborhood services district located northwest of the intersection between 1518 and Schaefer Road, City of Schertz, Bexar County, Texas, also known as DG Schertz Additional Subdivision, Lot 2, Block 1. This is our first reading. Mr. James, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me move down to it. So this is a rezoning request and this is at the corner of Schaefer Road, right here, and FM 1518. And as you can see the property in green, the owner is proposing to rezone that almost 3-acre tract of land. It's currently got split with zoning district, RA, which is residential agricultural, which is large lot residential, and general business commercial district, to neighborhood services district. And so the neighborhood services is a lower intensity commercial zoning district. Again, this is just part of the conversation we just had. We're starting to see those residential homes. We're starting to see people prep for commercial. You may recall there was the Dollar General that went in at that site, and this is really kind of, I think, a bit of property owners saying, yep, let's rezone the stuff around it so that we're ready to develop. Otherwise, it is a fairly straightforward zoning. There was a property owner adjacent opposed to that request. It's a graphic of the layout, the property, the comp plan, what the zoning map is currently, and then again to remind you that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended unanimously approval of the proposed zoning district.
Okay, thank you, Mr. James. This item is also on the agenda as an open public hearing. Is there anyone in attendance who would like to comment on this agenda item? Going twice? If none, public hearing is closed. Council, floor is open for discussion. Yes, Councilmember Brown.
Approve ordinance number 20S-30.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Brown, second by Councilmember Hayward. Any other comments?
Sir,
Yes, Councilmember Scott.
yeah, I'm just wondering, Brian,
Yes, sir.
back when they put the dollar store in, didn't we recognize that the entire area should have been probably rezoned at that time? At least I thought so.
No, you have a good memory. I think, here's what I said. As I recall, some of the discussion on this is that the commercial wasn't just limited to Dollar General. We as a community have traditionally said, rather than the city coming in and saying, your zoning really should be this, and we're going to tell you that now, we're going to rezone it for you, we've sort of deferred to the property owner and said, for whatever reason, if you want to leave it the way it is, fine. When you're ready to come forward with it. So to my knowledge, we've not done a city-initiated rezone in the time that I've been here, the 8 years. Thus, we have some of these conflicts between the comp plan and the existing zoning, as we've just allowed property owners to kind of come in and let the market drive that.
So there isn't going to be any kind of conflict between different styles of zoning on this particular property?
No, we don't think so. I mean, again, a couple things I will say. One of the things, and again, we need to really clean up on our Unified Development Code, is typically zoning districts are hierarchical in terms of intensity. That as you move up the zoning districts of commercial, it gets more and more intensive. Ours are a little bit of a hodgepodge. You look at this one and say, well, why is this use not allowed here, but then it's allowed in this one, but then it's not allowed in that one? So no, we don't think it creates a conflict. What it does mean, though, is you've got just a bit of a checkerboard until it sort of comes in and fills in. That can be a challenge, but again, I think, and I think Council said, we think that's preferable to let us, based on what we now in September of 2020, tell you what it should be, and do it for you. And a lot of folks, even though they may not disagree, they just don't like the city telling them what to do there.
Okay. Any other comments? We have a motion by Councilmember Brown, second by Councilmember Hayward to approve ordinance number 20S-30. No other comments? Let's go ahead and call for the vote.
Aye.
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 We have 7 ayes, no objection, motion passes. All right, we'll move on to roll call confirmation. Our City Secretary, Brenda Dennis, will provide roll call confirmation on consent agenda items 1 through 4, 6 through 12, discussion items number 5, and 13 through 17. Ms. Dennis.
Yes, Mayor. Motion was made by Councilmember Davis, seconded by Councilmember Hayward to approve the consent agenda items 1 through 4 and 6 through 12. Mayor Pro Tem Scott, Councilmembers Davis, Larson, Dalla, Scagliola, Hayward, and Brown voted yes. No one voted no. Motion passed. Item number 5, resolution number 20R109. A motion was made by Mayor Pro Tem Scott, seconded by by Councilmember Dalla. Mayor Pro Tem Scott, Councilmembers Davis, Larson, Dalla, Scagliola, Hayward, and Brown voted yes. No one voted no. Motion passed. Item number 13, resolution number 20R107. A motion was made by Councilmember Scagliola, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Scott. Mayor Pro Tem Scott, Councilmembers Davis, Larson, Dalla, Scagliola, Hayward, Brown voted yes. No one voted no. Motion passed. Item number 14, resolution number 20R104. A motion was made by Councilmember Dalla, seconded by Councilmember Scagliola. Mayor Pro Tem Scott, Councilmembers Davis, Dalla, Scagliola, Hayward, Brown voted yes. Councilmember Larson voted no. Motion passed. Item number 15, ordinance number 20T32 on final reading. A motion was made by Councilmember Hayward that the property tax rate be increased, that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of 0.5121, which is effectively a 0.8% increase in the tax rate, seconded by Councilmember Brown. Mayor Pro Tem Scott, Councilmembers Davis, Dalla, Hayward, Brown voted yes. Councilmembers Larson and Scagliola voted no. Motion passed. Item number 16, ordinance number 20S29 on first reading. A motion was made by Councilmember Dalla, seconded by Councilmember Hayward. Mayor Pro Tem Scott, Councilmembers Davis, Larson, Dalla, Scagliola, Hayward, Brown voted yes. No one voted no. Motion passed. Item number 17, ordinance number 20S30 on first reading. A motion was made by Councilmember Brown, seconded by Councilmember Hayward. Mayor Pro Tem Scott, Councilmembers Davis, Larson, Dalla, Scagliola, Hayward, Brown voted yes. No one voted no. Motion passed.
Thank you, Ms. Dennis. All right, we'll move on. We have item number 18, a workshop on possible bond refinancing opportunities. Mr. Walters.
All right, good evening again, Mayor and Council. I have the pleasure to bring forth a bond refinancing opportunity to you today. We mentioned this at the last council meeting that SAMCO, our financial advisors, had told us that we have a refinancing opportunity given the interest rates that are out there right now. This refunding opportunity will not increase the duration of the bonds they're refinancing, but will allow for lower annual payments, potentially reducing the need for INS tax rate next year. I have with me here tonight Mark McCliney, and he will go for, bring up some more details on the refinancing opportunity while I get this set up a little bit.
Thank you. My name is Mark McCliney. I'm with Samco Capital Markets. It's a pleasure to work with City of Schertz. I've worked with you all, I think, since 1991. It's amazing what you were in 1991 and where you are now, and it continues to impress. You are really the gem in this entire area. Our job, of course, is to help you when you borrow money, but our job also works with your staff to review your existing bonds to make sure we're not leaving anything on the table where we could refinance. Similar to refinancing your home loan. You have two bonds, and you all have this at your desk, the dais. On the second page, you'll see there's two bonds that are currently callable or will be callable on February 1st, 2021. We have the right to take them from the investor within 90 days of that call date. And those bonds are the GO bonds issued in 2011 in the amount of $6,050,000 that are still left, and the GO refunding bond 2011A of $2,005,000. The interest rates on those bonds range from a low of 2.33% to a high of 5%. They were good at the time in 2011. Those were good borrowing rates. Now, with the Fed lowering interest rates to 0 to 25 basis points, we have a real opportunity to save money. On the box on the left, lower left, and I'll go columns, if you do nothing, you will pay on those two bonds, the prior debt service column, a total of $10,797,000. We believe, with your all's permission, we could go out and sell new bonds, lower the payment, and you can see we're not extending it at all, to $9,454,000, and a savings, the third column, or the middle column, you'll see savings, $1,342,000, roughly $90,000 a year, lower payments, without extending the debt. What we're doing is taking approximately an average interest rate, you'll see this on the right hand, 4.67, and replacing it with an average interest rate of about 2.19%. I believe we're going to be closer to 2%, meaning that the savings will be slightly higher. What we want to do, what we did and met with your staff was, yes, does this make sense? Staff said, yes, that makes sense. Now we want to come to you all to say, do we have permission to go out to the market? We don't like going out to the market without the council being fully abreast of what's going on. And if you look at the last page, what we would like to do is go out to market on October 27th, which is a council meeting, receive interest rates that day, and bring it to you all for consideration in an ordinance that evening. We think that savings will be at least what we're showing here of that $1.3 million. I think we're going to likely get closer to $1.5 million. Interest rates do fluctuate. If interest rates go up a little bit higher, we may not get to this, but every indication is interest rates are going to stay where they are until really 2023. That's the latest report from the Fed, that they're going to keep rates that low until 2023. So we're not leaving anything on the table. We're getting the refunding. We're doing it at the first opportunity within the 90 days of that call date, which is February 1st, 2021. So we'd just like your permission to proceed and come back with final results. If final results are satisfactory to you all, we would ask you to approve that through an ordinance on the October 27th meeting. I think that's what I said, October 27th.
Yes.
And I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
All right. Councilmember Dalla.
This is simply being stewards of the taxpayers' money, and yeah, there's no reason not to.
Mayor Pro Tem Scott?
Yeah, I mean, refinancing is always a good idea when your interest rates go down. It's good on a personal level, and it's certainly good for a city. My question is more procedural for you, Mayor. My understanding was like to give them the green light when they come back, and on the 27th, if we agree to that, but does it have to go to 2 votes or no? Just one?
No.
It would be, and that's a good question. State law allows us to do bonds in an ordinance with one reading.
Oh, okay.
One reading, and that's for the same reason you just mentioned, to lock in interest rates. Purchasers won't hold it for 10 days.
It will be first and final reading, only because it's time sensitive, and the fact is that we're not spending money, we're trying to save money in this situation.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Yes, Councilmember Scagliola.
Yeah, Mara, thanks so much for coming by. It's usually a pleasure seeing you. You make a habit of saving us money. I think the key here for people to remember is that this the refinancing doesn't extend the maturity date on this. For some people, they're thinking, oh, yeah, you're going to pay a lower rate, but you're extending the time you're paying that, and that's not the case with these bonds. So thank you.
Extending it at all.
So thank you so very much for clarifying that also. That's all I have, sir.
Okay. Any other comments, any questions? I think, you have a consensus. Let's go for it. Let's save money.
We'll work with James and get this thing done. We'll have rating conference calls and all of that, and we'll be back here October with results.
Great. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to item number 19, workshop discussion and update regarding the COVID-19 virus and a current ordinance number 20H18, declaration of local disaster. Chief, floor is yours.
Morning, or afternoon, evening. All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. We're just to give a quick update. When I start out here, just going through one of the updates before we get into it is one of the numbers has changed. Basically dishes reported yesterday that they had found some cases that had not previously been reported yet, and so it's skewed our numbers at this point. So they're going to work through that over the next few days, but there will be additional numbers added, but what we don't know is how many of those are active at this time. So that's why we're waiting at this point to give accurate numbers instead of just new numbers that we don't know where they're falling yet. So with that being said, just wanted to update council on executive order. So a new order come out on the 17th that went into effect yesterday that move businesses to operate up to 75%. And so that was the gym, exercise facilities, manufacturers, museums and libraries, office-based employers, restaurants and retailers. So I would just mention here the update on our Schertz library is they're going to open October 6th, and they're going to still operate Tuesday through Saturday from 11 to 6, and they will continue to do the drive-through books like they've currently been doing, and so that's why they're going to operate on that modified schedule once they open back up on October 6th. And you see at the bottom where just an update again about still reminding some of the no occupancy limits on the list of critical infrastructure workforce is still no occupancy limits, child care, local government operations, and now they've added some of the drive-in concerts and movies that you've started to see can operate in that fashion as well. The next order was 31, Executive Order 31, and it primarily just talked about changing the hospital capacity. So if you recall before, at one time it was hospitals had to maintain 20% of their floor space for COVID patients, and then it kind of went to 15%, and now it's at 10% based on the number of COVID patients there. And then again, if you recall, they stopped allowing elective surgeries, and so now in this new order, if the patient load is less than 15%, then hospitals can start doing those elective surgeries again. So that's kind of the two updates that come out of the governor's executive order that come out, starting to open things back up a little bit more, going to the 75%. So that's been helpful. I'm still trying to go over the state data on the daily positivity rate. So you can see last time we were at 2,057, and currently it's down to 1,742. All that's from the DISH's COVID dashboard. And also on the hospitalization numbers have ticked down a little bit statewide as well as regionally, and so down to 31, 32 from 35, 37 last time. Bexar County hospitalizations, just to kind of look at that, compared to last time we were at 300. and it's kind of come down in between 200 and 225, so we've settled at 226 currently. ICU patients have went down, and ventilator patients have went down as well, to where the non-COVID hospitalizations have just kind of stayed about the same pretty much since the last time we had a council meeting. And that's pretty much what I've got as far as update goes.
All right.
Now, if I can answer anything.
Thank you, Chief. Yeah, I'm glad to see the numbers are starting to come down. Council, floor is open for discussion. Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Scott?
Yeah, do you know what they did with the methodology? Because I've been reading from the San Antonio Express News, and they're announcing new cases, and they're like from June till September, or from July 15 till, September 15. And this has been weekly for about 3 or 4 weeks now. It's so bizarre. Like, what's going on with that?
As I understand it at this point, how it's kind of been explained is they've changed reporting methodologies a couple of times, and so what they had some manual entries going on. I mean, early on there was a lot of stuff done by fax, and then it switched over to email later on. And so my understanding of this current situation is this is some of the cases that were caught in between those changes when they were going from this type of method to give the results to dishes. During a review of that process recently, last week, they discovered that there was several counties, Guadalupe County was one, that had a lot of cases that were, kind of hung in a spam folder or something, like, using that in terms of it was hung out there someplace and it didn't get through to the proper place in dishes. They found some of those, so Bexar County was in the same situation, to where they had a lot that they had reported that didn't get properly pushed through. They discovered those. And some of those counties is several thousand cases that were sitting there that never got reported. So at this point, it's trying to figure out which ones of those are active and which ones of those are recovered.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get at, too. Thanks for saying that. It does not inspire confidence in their methodology, and they don't say which ones are active or old or recovered or dead or anything. It's just like, bang, all these new cases, and it's just weird. But anyway, it makes your job harder. But thanks for explaining that. I had no idea. I mean, it didn't even say why there were like that, in the article. So thanks, and good job, and I hope they are coming down. So that's good. Thank you, sir.
Any other comments? None. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to item number 20. It is a closed session. The City Council will meet in closed session in accordance with Section 551.087 of the Texas Governmental Code. Deliberation regarding economic development negotiations. Closed meeting. The governmental body is now required to conduct an open meeting, 1, to discuss or deliberate regarding commercial or financial information that the governmental body has received from a business prospect that the governmental body seeks to have locate, stay, or expand in or near the territory of the governmental body for which the governmental body is conducting economic development negotiations. Or number 2, to deliberate or offer of a financial or other incentive to a business prospect. This is in reference to Project E-063. Guests and staff, due to social distancing rules, those not participating are required to step outside the building, and we will call you back once we reconvene to our regular meeting. We'll go ahead and recess for 5 minutes before we start. The time is now 8:19.
Dave, does he have an aerial? Yeah. So we could send that to council? Yeah, I think that'd just be helpful.
Now, what about the where did they show it?
Okay, the time is now 8:43. We reconvene into a regular session after our discussion and deliberation regarding the closed session in reference to agenda item number 20 in regards to project E063. There is no action needed at this time, so there is no roll call confirmation also required. So we'll move on to requests and announcements. Our city manager, Dr. Brown, any further announcements?
I have nothing further.
Okay. Council, any possible updates or information requested from staff?
Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember.
Yeah, I'd like to reassess or get a reassessment of the paving projects that are out there, because, okay, when, one person complains, well, that's sometimes just one person complaining. But when you get a whole subdivision complaining, not only one but two, okay, you got it. All right, and the other thing is the Fairhaven. I'd like to know specifically what the issues are, what it is that can be done to resolve the issues, if anything at all. I kind of like that kind of an update, and if possible, I can sit down with Dr. Brown or James, and we can hash it out. I don't know that we need to make a council agenda item out of it. That's all I have, sir.
Okay, Councilmember Dalla.
Yeah, I'd just like to tag on with the paving discussion, and maybe as part of that discussion, we also include is the chip seal process really the appropriate one for residential streets, and maybe that's something more appropriate for the more arterial and collector streets. And let's look at what our options are, and let's make sure we're doing the right thing.
Okay, Council, yes.
I'm totally in agreement with that, and I'd also like to have options of what we can do without having to spend $1.5 million or $2 million. Like, just what are some options? And I'm not an engineer, but could we put, sand and then roll over it and it'd be a lot better, or whatever? I just don't know, but maybe some options along with that would help fix the problem short term or make it more livable.
Okay. Yes, Councilmember Haywood.
Piggybacking on that, my question would be, if we're driving out there, if the road, as the picture showed that it was failing, then it could be a process in how it was done as opposed to how the road is being done. I mean, us doing chip seal. Could it be that the contractor didn't do something right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. I think what we should, yes, Councilmember Brown.
Right across the street there in Greenfield Village has just been chip sealed, and their main roads are in good shape. I mean, they're smooth, they're comfortable, there's no excess gravelly substance, if you will. And I don't remember the date, but it wasn't that long ago.
That was the month prior to Wilson's Preserve.
Yeah, they're part of the same project.
Yeah, it's part of the same project. I think we did Greenfield first, then Wilson's Preserve, and then we did Lone Star. So we have 3 subdivisions that we did chip sealed.
Was that on the same contract? Brian?
Yeah. But you're right, I've driven through all 3 neighborhoods, and they're different. So what we're requesting then is just update information. We won't do an agenda item unless the council thinks it's necessary, but let's get some information and see if there's any possible remedies that can be offered, and then we'll see what council likes to move forward on that. Okay, council, any possible items you'd like to place on future agenda items? None? Okay. So we'll continue with announcements by council members. Mayor Pro Tem Scott?
None at this time.
Councilmember Davis?
Yeah, I attended the Housing Authority meeting the other night. We have a new management group that is managing the Schertz Housing Authority. It's the Kennedy Housing Authority. They actually manage their group and several other communities. Seems like a good leadership team. They're very excited about the support that they get from the city of Schertz, and they're looking forward to continuing that in the future.
Thank you for representing our city, Councilmember Davis. Councilmember Larson?
Nothing.
Councilmember Dalla?
Yeah, I got a few events that I attended. A week ago Saturday, went to Paws in the Pool with my wife and daughters and some of our dogs. Everybody had a great time. Wasn't attended quite as much as last year. The thing that they did do that I thought was great was they did it in shifts to limit the number of people, and going forward that might be a way to keep doing it to keep the crowds a little bit more under control once we get past all the COVID stuff. Attended the chamber mixer at the Blue Bonnet Palace, and then also went and attended the grand opening at the Americana Coffee and Espresso Bar on Main Street there. A nice new little business there, and pretty good coffee, so everybody make sure you stop by and give it a go.
All right, Councilmember Scagliola?
Nothing tonight, sir. Thank you.
Councilmember Hayward?
Yes, a few things. The Northeastern Partner Luncheon, the ACOG Economic Development Webinar, a Text 21 webinar. I did attend, which it wasn't a city event, but it was hosted in the city, the Summer New Vendor event that was hosted over in the community center. And it was a nice event, and I actually won something from Mary Kay. I attended Paws in the Pool, and compared to last year, I think the specific sessions that they have, the different sessions they have, was a lot better than last year. Last year was like noisy and loud, and just, this one was a little bit calmer and seemed like dogs seemed to be having a little more fun. Not that I'm know much. I attended the chamber luncheon. I attended the Greater Bexar County Council of Cities webinar. And then there was a BSA ribbon cutting over in Schertz. It's a gym that focuses on strength and conditioning for youth and athletes and amateur and professional athletes. And they're opening up a facility over in Schertz next to the old Garden Ridge. And that was a nice little place to go. That is all.
Okay, Councilmember Brown?
I didn't see him here tonight, but let Chief Hansen know. Thank you. As Special Projects Officer, did a real good personal protection presentation for us, and it sounds like they got some good plans for the future. So we appreciate what the Schertz PD is doing.
All right, thank you. I don't have any comments to make. The time is now 8:50. We stand adjourned.
I'm not getting any of the chambers